I'm Teisha Bader with Shalom TV's news update for Tuesday, November the 19th, 2013. A mortar shell was fired into southern Israel from the Gaza Strip this morning. The shell landed in the Eshkol Regional Council area near the border fence with Gaza. No injuries or damage was reported. In a separate incident, a Palestinian vehicle broke through a security checkpoint north of Jerusalem today. A civilian security guard who was on duty at the checkpoint fired at the car after it ignored orders to stop. The gunfire, however, did not stop the vehicle, which continued towards Jerusalem and hit two other security guards as it fled, causing them light injury. The two security guards were treated at the scene by Magen David Adom paramedics. Israeli security forces are continuing their search for the vehicle. Two explosions, reportedly suicide bombings, hit Iran's embassy in Lebanon today, killing at least 23 people, including an Iranian cultural attaché, and injuring nearly 150 others. According to Reuters, Lebanese-based al-Qaeda-linked group known as the Abdullah Azzam Brigades has claimed responsibility for the attack. Earlier today, Al Jazeera reported that official Iranian news agency IRNA quoted an Iranian foreign ministry spokesman blaming Israel for the attack. And the Times of Israel reports that Iran's ambassador in Lebanon also accused Israel. Gazanfar Rokin Abadi reportedly told Lebanon's Al Mayadeen television that the agents of the Zionist entity Israel are behind the blasts. Veteran Likud Knesset member Tzachi Hanegbi flatly rejected the claim and said it was humorous that a country that has perpetuated terror around the world now is blaming others. Hanegbi said, "We are blamed for everything that happens in the Middle East. Sometimes these are things we take responsibility for because they have to do with Israel's security, but Israel's security gains nothing by bloodshed in Beirut or in any Arab capital or state." French President François Hollande left Israel this evening after a three-day visit to the region. This morning, together with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, Hollande visited the graves of the victims of the massacre in March of 2012 in Toulouse at the Ozar HaTorah Jewish Day School. The leaders were joined by relatives of Rabbi Yonatan Sandler, his children Arya and Gabrielle, and Miriam Mansangu at their Jerusalem grave sites. Hollande had paid tribute to the victims of Toulouse when he spoke at the Knesset in Jerusalem yesterday and committed to continuing to fight against anti-Semitism in France. He also reiterated France's position to not allow Iran to obtain a nuclear weapon. And in his speech, Hollande also called for a two-state solution between Israel and the Palestinians, with Jerusalem as a shared capital for both. U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry will not be arriving in Israel this Friday, as originally reported. U.S. State Department spokeswoman Jen Psaki told reporters yesterday that Kerry has postponed the trip and that he hopes to visit Israel in the coming weeks, thought likely to be after the Thanksgiving holiday, which would also mean it would be after the next round of talks in Geneva between the P5+1 and Iran. Psaki also reaffirmed the relationship between the U.S. and Israel, telling reporters that Israel and the United States have a strong, decades-long partnership. We work together on a range of issues. It's important to note that one of the reasons we're so committed to pursuing the diplomatic path with Iran is because we are committed to Israel's security, and that's the message that we're conveying. The Times of Israel reports that the granddaughter of Hamas Prime Minister Ismail Haniyeh was treated in a hospital in Israel this week. 1-year-old Amal Abdel Salam was in critical condition after being diagnosed with an infection of the digestive tract, which also affected her nervous system and brain. An Israeli military spokesman said yesterday that the baby was admitted to Schneider Children's Hospital for Israel in Petah Tikva, where Israeli doctors tried to help her, but after her condition was deemed incurable, she was returned to a hospital in Gaza City. According to the report, the Israeli coordinator of government activities in the territories known as Kogat had received a phone call from the Palestinian Authority's liaison office in Gaza on Sunday asking to admit the baby to an Israeli hospital. But after her condition deteriorated, Major Guyan Bar, a spokesman for Kogat, told the Times of Israel that Amal was then returned to Gaza after her condition could not be stabilized. Saudi Arabia strongly denied a report by Britain's Sunday Times that suggested it was cooperating with Israel regarding a possible strike on Iran. As we reported to you yesterday, the British paper said that Saudi officials had given their consent to Israel to use Saudi airspace for a potential strike on Iran, as well as other means of cooperation. However, according to Saudi state news agency SPA, a Saudi foreign ministry spokesman rejected the report and said his country has no relations or contacts with Israel of any kind or at any level. Israel's High Court of Justice today denied a request from an alleged al-Qaeda terrorist being detained in Israel to be freed. As we reported to you yesterday, Samer Abed al-Latif al-Barak was revealed to have been serving in administrative detention in Israel since 2010. He's alleged to have had training in and of heading al-Qaeda's biological weapons program and of recruiting many violent followers. He had been previously held by the United States and by Jordan. The Israeli court today denied the request of al-Barak, saying he was still too dangerous to be released. U.S. Ambassador to Israel Dan Shapiro confirmed that the U.S., along with Greek, Polish, and Italian air forces, will participate in an Israeli Air Force combat exercise later this month. The Times of Israel had reported on the planned drill earlier this month, named the Blue Flag Drill. The exercise will be modeled after the U.S. Air Force's annual Red Flag Desert exercise, with over 100 aircraft participating in simulated dogfights and surface-to-air exercises in what will be the largest international drill ever held in Israel. German prosecutors have decided to pursue murder charges against a 94-year-old former Nazi commander. As you may recall, back in June of this year, an investigation by the Associated Press revealed that Michael Karkosh was a commander in a Nazi SS-led unit, the Ukrainian Self-Defense Legion, and was accused of attacking villages and killing civilians in Poland during the Holocaust. The initial investigation had found that Karkosh was in the area of those attacks, but didn't uncover evidence linking him directly to them. However, new information uncovered by the AP from the Ukrainian intelligence agency's archive reveals that a private who was serving under Karkosh's command testified in 1968 that Karkosh had in fact ordered the assault on the village of Shlanau in 1944 that left over 40 women and children dead. Karkosh has been living in the U.S. and Minnesota since he entered the country in 1949 by not revealing his Nazi past. His family denies Karkosh had any involvement in the Polish village massacre or in any other possible war crime. Senior fellow at the Washington Institute, David Makovsky, will be leaving his position there to join the U.S. State Department as a senior advisor to the Middle East peace envoy Martin Indyk. Washington Institute Executive Director Robert Sadloff said that while he was sad to see Makovsky go, he was proud of the critical role he will play in U.S. policymaking. Sadloff said, "We are confident that David will enrich the U.S. government's diplomatic efforts to promote Middle East peace with the same creativity and wisdom that have made him a pivotal member of the Institute research team and a trusted resource to decision makers in Washington and throughout the region." And tonight on Shalom TV, Dr. Ben Showit, president of NORPAC, a nonpartisan political action committee which promotes U.S.-Israel relations, joins Mark Golub on L'chaim at 9 o'clock. That's here on Shalom TV and ShalomTV.com. And that's Shalom TV's news update for Tuesday, November the 19th, 2013. I'm Teisha Bader.